Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2020, and welcome to the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on the lessons that life throws at us to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward to uplift others who are struggling. It's a new year, and I am so thrilled to keep this journey going on with each and every one of you. I have a question. Have you ever planned something, an appointment, an event, whatever, doesn't matter, and it's nothing spectacular? In fact, it's quite routine, but during this event, an incident occurs of devastating proportions that becomes a pivotal and transformational point in your life. Well, this happened to my special guest, and the way she's responded is a genuine testament to her character, heart, and compassion for others in this world. She's an actress, a writer, and producer. She's produced her first internet TV show, Hanging Out with Heather, and author of the book, Bullied at the Dog Park, a story with a compelling message that applies on the many levels of society. Coming at us from the Big Apple, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Heather Lehrman. Heather, welcome. It's so nice to have you on the show.
Wow, that was a great greeting, Aubrey. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Pleasure's ours to have you on the show for sure. So tell the listeners about yourself a little bit, where you're from, upbringing, and so forth.
I'm born and raised in Long Island, New York, and I still live here now, currently living here. I am the things you've said, but I've owned a pet service business for 8 years, which was dog walking, pet sitting, pet taxiing, meaning taking the dog to and from vet appointments or grooming appointments. I'm certified in pet CPR and first aid. So that's nice. Been a big part of my life for the last 8 years. And like you said, I've authored a book called Bullied at the Dog Park. And the way it started was that I have this adorable Boston Terrier named Herbie who's laying right next to me, and you guys might hear some snorting going on. That's just his natural tone.
No, it's beautiful.
And he's my baby boy. And I took him to a private little dog park, and he was bullied when he was a puppy. He was attacked by a larger dog that wasn't social over toys. And I threw a flying disc because really the word frisbee, I could say it, but in the book I couldn't because it's trademarked.
Right.
You have to know every word when you write a book, just so you guys know that out there. You have to look at every word to make sure it's not trademarked, copyrighted, I mean. So I threw the frisbee, and sure enough, he went to get it, and a dog jumped on top of him and beat him up pretty good. And I was very upset. He had like a little bloody eye and some bloody paw marks, on his leg, scratch marks. So I knew from being a dog professional that those two things I noticed right then and there weren't so horrible. So the owner was grabbing his dog off of him and apologizing up and down. And I'm so sorry. Is there anything I could do? And I said, I've dealt with this before. I know how to deal with a little blood in his eye. I'm going to go home and I just want to clean him up. And he's like, well, you know where to find me if anything happens. So I did take him home, and, he was acting fine. And I know how to cleanse out an eye and clean the little bloody scratch marks on his leg.
Right.
And I wasn't really too concerned. But a few hours later, we were playing, and he jumped up on the coffee table right across from me. So his head was looking at me, and he's tiny. I mean, he's only 20 pounds, but at that time he was probably 15 pounds as a puppy. And he had a huge bubble sticking out of his neck, the size of his head.
Oh my goodness.
And it's called a hematoma.
Right.
and it's a blood bubble. And I freaked out. And thank goodness at the time, my vet was literally down the block. So I rushed them there, and they said they weren't an emergency animal hospital. They were just a smaller part of the vet, the central vet, station. So they're like,
Right.
we got to get him over. The driver's going to take him right now to another town, which was like a 30-minute drive. And he's got to get that drained. And I was scared to death because he was my baby boy. And,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
you know, and they said it's really dangerous. It came from a dog bite. So basically my point
Right.
being that it came from that dog biting him,
Right.
bit his neck while he was on top of him, but we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know it at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was horrible, but thank goodness it was 2 days of worrying to death about him, but he ended up fine. And I actually had to have a battle with these people because it was actually a couple. It wasn't just the guy. He had his girlfriend there, but she wasn't
Right.
even close to the incident. And I ran and left them a note. I knew where they lived, but I didn't have their phone number. So I left them a note and just asked them, told them what happened after the fact. And they actually bullied me, which is hysterical because she pushed him aside and got on the phone with me. I just asked them to help with the bill, which was a couple of grand.
Well, of
And
course. I mean,
yeah,
that's only fair.
and I didn't even have to be honest, but I was, because I'm
Right.
not like that. I had pet insurance. So out of $2,000, I was covered. 1,300 of it was covered. Thank goodness. Everyone out there, pet insurance really works, just so you know. It's a great tip because people ask me all the time, oh, it's probably just a scam. I'm like, no, his bill was 2 grand and I only had to pay 700. So
Wow.
he was
That really
covered.
works.
Yeah.
That's good. Great
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah. So I just asked for the other 7. That was it because
Yeah.
it was their fault. So
Right.
she got on the phone with me the very next day, put me on speaker, said the boyfriend will not be speaking from this point forward, and was talking like a lawyer. I don't know what you think happened, but your dog attacked my dog and blah, 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 blah. And right
Mm-hmm.
there, I just couldn't believe it. And this was actually while Herbie was still in the ICU, actually. So I was just so upset. And then listening to that tone and what she was trying to do,
Yeah.
once I was still vulnerable, but once I got him home and I knew he was safe and sound, then I just said to her, you know what, I'll see you in court. And that was
That's
it.
right.
I had to take them to court. So
Mm.
the bullying was all around. It was the dog, it was them. And I ended up just telling, you could hear him snorting, right?
Yeah, I could hear him.
My boy is
Yeah.
tired. I ended up telling the story so much, saying he got bullied at the dog park, that just stuck with me. And that became the
Mhm.
title of my book. And I ended up turning his character into an illustration. And he had other friends that I call the smush face breeds because Boston Terriers, French Bulldogs, Pugs, they all have the little smushed in face. So I called them my smushies. And I made a book with him and his smush faced friends.
Right.
And I turned all the, based on the true story of him being bullied. And then I created the rest of the story where he goes on a journey to find out why he was bullied. And
Right.
on the journey, he meets a beloved bulldog and a cute pug and 2 French
Mm-hmm.
bulldogs. And each one of them has a story of how they were bullied in one way or another. And each one relates to a kid, like how a kid could be bullied in real life.
Right.
So I made the characters relate to children's scenarios. And I ended up just writing the book. I found a great illustrator because that I'm not. Wish I was, but I don't have an artistic bone in my body, unfortunately. I have the creativity, but not the artistic part. And then, it turned out to be a book. And next thing I know, I was doing some school assemblies, and the teachers, the kids, the teachers, they all loved it. And I was actually shocked at the feedback, that the kids were giving in these assemblies, because after I would read it up on a big screen, they loved the dog characters and they'd be like, oh, we want to meet Herbie.
Right,
And,
right.
and I'll just say quickly, I brought him to a school once and that was it, because they made me go to every single classroom and it was tons of hands all over him. He was so
Of course.
stressed out. I'm like, I
Oh,
can't,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
But they all want to meet him. So now I have just a live video that I could show them of him and it's good enough, But
Yeah.
but in the aftermath of reading the book, I would go around afterwards in the group and say, so tell me who was bullied, tell me what happened and what good came out of it. And I was just amazed at what the kids were shouting out. And they were like, I didn't like that Herbie got bullied and that happened to me one day. And then
Right.
they all started talking about their own bullying situations. And I was like, this is amazing, because this is exactly what I was going for, that it would open up lines of communications with kids and get them this is for a young age group, like 4 to 8. And while they're still so young, I wanted them to learn what it is when someone's mean to you or leaves you out. And it's never nice to leave somebody alone and leave them out. I think a lot of us know the story about a kid that would be sitting alone at the lunch table in school, and I don't think we realized back then if it was you or if it wasn't you, but you didn't go and invite them over because it was like, ew, they have cooties, whatever,
Right.
How horribly it affects somebody.
Well, it tremendously does. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Heather. You touch on a very good point that I wanted to kind of, I don't know, crack open and talk about a little bit more. First off, as you said a few minutes ago, it's a story for children and everything. And that's true. But the beauty of this, in my mind at least, is that while it is a story for children, the message behind it is applicable on so many levels, right? Preschoolers, middle schoolers, high schoolers, adults,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my parents obviously had rules for, within the home and a set of guidelines in how we conduct ourselves, and what to expect from the world once we walk out that door, right? So among the many things, they taught my siblings and I, one lesson that resonated with me has always been like, well, you heard the golden rule, right?
Well, what's that? We might have two different golden rules. I don't know.
Well, what I was taught was, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or treat others the way you would like
want to be
treated and want to be treated,
yeah.
right? So, and to me, that just, it resonated with me and I carry it to this day. But, my parents were very transparent and candid with me on the outside world. When you walk out that door and go to the park or go to the library or walk down the street, and this is something that's huge for children to learn in the lesson of your story. I was wondering, was there a lesson or rule that your parents gave you in dealing with the outside world that may be sort of reflective in this story?
It's funny because I was just thinking about it as you were saying that, and I'm like, that's great that they did that with you, but they I guess it was, I don't know, it wasn't that I'm losing the word here, but it wasn't that apparent, like that they were just straight out saying, listen, this is, I think it's a little different because we grew up across the street from our elementary school and kindergarten. So I don't think that they were so concerned, because it was like right across the street.
Right across the street. Gotcha.
And all our friends lived literally on our block, and everyone knew each other's parents. So it wasn't, it was a little different, but it was funny because I got more advice when I got older.
Gotcha.
Not really as a kid what to beware of and what's going to happen. I don't think things were different with me, but it was more when I got older that I would get some pretty funny advice. I think I mentioned to you I did some stand-up comedy, and part of my, not to get off track here, but part of one of my bits once was about, my dad gave me some really strange advice growing up, like, you better get a job and make sure your boss is a male. Make sure you interview with a male, because he was old school, like that a male would hire me over a female, meaning because females would be jealous or this or that or catty and not want to hire you. So, and make sure, because you're going to lose your looks by 30, make sure you get a great job landed by 30 because you're going to lose your looks. I'm like, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that.
Oh man. Okay. I guess that's a lesson in how to operate outside the door in my adulthood, right?
Yeah. Well, guess what? I passed 30, and he felt bad saying that, because he's like, all right, I guess, and I guess in his day, it was different in his day, because 30, you were old kids, like totally different. So, you looked 50 back then, I guess, at 30. And now when you're 40, you look 30. So it's different.
No, big time difference. Yeah, it's a different world, and it was another generation at that time. And my father and mother, pretty old school as well when it came to that age of 30, for sure. Hey, let's get back to Herbie. Now, how old is Herbie?
He is turning 9 next week, January 31st. And he's
31st.
Yes, he's been with me since he's 9 weeks, and he's going to be 9 years. So it's been 9 years together.
Very nice. Very nice. So growing up, was your family a dog family? I take it. Is that where your love of dogs stems from?
Yeah, we had dogs our whole lives. We always had 2 also, and they were always rescue dogs. And Herbie's the only dog, because well, you know what? Your show's sentimental. So this is something I never even told you. So my father actually passed away in 2011. And he was, thank you. He was sick for a long time, but when he was at the ending stage, I wasn't married, and I didn't have, I didn't know if I was going to end up having a son, but I said, but Dad, even if I do, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to name him Herbert. I just don't want that name, even if I have a son, but I'm going to definitely get a dog and name him Herbie, because it's adorable. And he just looked up at me with the biggest smile on his face and said, you would do that? I said, of course I will. So I knew that I wanted a Boston Terrier, and I was going to name him Herbie, so he had to be a boy. So Herbie's named after my dad.
Oh, that is so sweet. That's a tearjerker, Heather.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you got me. I mean, for a couple reasons. Number one, I lost my father in 2006, and he was sick too. And then number two, just naming your dog after your father. There's a true heartfelt, sentimental reason for giving that name to another living thing that you love so much, so you got me on that one.
I definitely know my dad knows about him. I know that I know that he sees us, I know he knows about him. I've always felt it,
Yes.
And I also did say, though, that in the same sentence, so I'll make you laugh a little. I said, yes, of course I will. And I said, but promise me 2 things. You're going to send me my husband, and you're going to send me the lotto numbers. And he goes, can I do that? He goes, can I do that? I go, yeah, of course you can. So he did send me my husband, but I'm still waiting for the lotto numbers.
Still waiting for the lotto numbers. Oh, that is hilarious.
He's like, I could do that. I'm like, yes.
Well, look, I mean, first off, 1 out of 2 is not bad, and if you got one, then definitely number 2's coming.
I hope so.
Oh, that is hilarious. I love it. I love it. And I'm a dog lover, and I had 2 dogs. I lost my girl dog March of last year. She was 15. My boy dog, I still have. He's 15 now, and so it's he's healthy, but I'm really paying attention to like hip dysplasia and all that good stuff.
What kind of dog?
He's a mix between a Rottweiler and a Chow.
Oh, okay. That's a cool mix.
Yeah, his name is Tyson, and he's a beautiful dog. And of course, any dog owner talking about their own dog is going to say that, but I truly believe you.
I can imagine, because that's why I said that's a cool mix. I could imagine. I definitely want to see a photo, so you'll have to send me one.
I will. You can count on me sending you a photo of my Tyson. Yeah, he is extraordinary. Now, and I'm familiar with some breeds, but quite honestly, I have to say I'm not too familiar with Boston Terriers. But are Boston Terriers and let's say smush face breeds in general friendly and social dogs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
He's very playful.
Uh-huh.
They're very assertive. So if you look up, Boston Terriers are black and white normally, but they can be brown and white.
Right.
And there could be a black and white French bulldog, and people will have asked me a million times, is he a French bulldog? He's a French bulldog, right? No, he's a Boston Terrier. But they mix them up because if Frenchies could be all different colors, but if they're black and white, they could look exactly like a Boston Terrier. And they both snort. They both snort and snore. Yeah.
I didn't know snorting was like one of the characteristics for the smush face.
Oh yeah. Listen for a second.
Okay.
Now that I want him to do it, he stopped. Like, what's going on? Yeah, he snores all night like 300-pound truck driver. I said, call him
300-pound truck driver. I love it. That's a great, vivid description for sure. Yeah.
The 20-pound Boston Terriers. So people don't realize it until they are aware of it. But every commercial with dogs has a Boston Terrier in it.
Really?
And they use them for a reason, because they attract the eye. You'll notice now. You're going to notice in commercials, any dog commercial, there's always a Boston Terrier. So it's because they're so assertive and smart that they could be on TV and learn how to do things easily.
Yeah.
And because they're just a unique looking breed that catches the eye. So I always say, I'm biased, but I'm really not, because my Boston happens to be so cute. Like, he just has such a cute face. Some Bostons are very box looking. Right. Yeah. But he's like round headed, and people really don't, they think sometimes, is he a pug? Is he a French bulldog? They don't get right away that he's a Boston, but any Boston Terrier I see anywhere, if I'm walking around the streets in Manhattan or where I live, I'll stop my car and get out, because it's like they're this special breed. And my friend had one that I got really close to while my dad was passing away. So I said, I'm getting one. And it was the only dog I didn't rescue that, wasn't a rescue dog from. But I said, you know what? I think we grew up rescuing dogs. Plenty of them. So all the people that, and of course I'm one of them now, that still will say rescue a dog over buying a dog from a breeder. Never a pet store. Don't ever buy a dog from a pet store. I mean, Herbie came from a breeder, but I wanted Herbie for a specific reason, and now you know why.
Oh, now I know why.
And also because my dad had a Beetle when we were growing up. And the Volkswagen Beetle came back,
Oh, like Herbie, the Beetle.
Right. So Herbie, the love bug.
Yeah, the
And
love bug.
yeah, so my dad loved that show. That was actually a real show, and then it became a Lindsay
Right.
Lohan movie years later. But
Yeah,
that
I
was,
remember when it was original, original, I think it was a Disney movie, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Herbie the Love Bug is his real, like he's Herbie the Love Bug, and so
Oh,
it went with the car and the dog for my dad.
no. Well, in that case, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Yep,
I see the tie-in at every level, right?
yep,
From your father to the vehicle, to your dog. Yeah, it all ties together. So
yeah.
it's so purposeful. That is that is amazing. Heather. So the book you've shared with children, you've asked children to just in a quick review of the story, who's the bully, and how should it be like received by the person being bullied, or
Mhm.
by the dog being bullied, and you've covered so much, and went as far as to bring Herbie to meet the children. Now you share a video with them. So I'm sure you are impacting so many young lives in how they should treat others out there in that cold world, and how to respond if they're mistreated, you know?
Exactly. And I do separately from the book, if I do a school assembly, I do a little bullying lesson where I have
Mm-hmm.
my sheet that I really drill into them. And I put it up on the screen too. And basically, I just took the word bullying and spelt it
Mm-hmm.
out going, you know, downward, like
Vertical,
B-U-L,
yeah.
yeah, vertically. And
Mm-hmm.
next to the B, be nice to everyone. Next to the
Right.
U, you know, upstander. You have to
Mm-hmm.
stand up for your friends if they can't do it themselves, you know, or go help them, get someone to help. You know, there's a lot of kids that feel bullied that don't tell anybody.
Right.
And if you're friends with a kid, if you're friends with someone that you know, even an adult, you have to be an upstander. If you can't, if your friend can't stand up for themselves, you have to do it for them.
That's right.
You know, and then the L is for, um, I can't even think right now, but basically at the end of that lesson, that's what they always shout out when I say, okay, so what's the biggest thing you learned today? And they yell out, be nice to everyone, never leave anyone out. And that's the message of my book.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And the children, you know, as I know it's cliche, but they are our future, right?
Yep,
And there is so much going on in the news today with just people disrespecting each other, mistreating each other,
yep,
whether it's domestic abuse or just strangers having fights due to road rage and all this, you know. And I think, I mean, you're giving our future the recipe for making the world a better place and treating each other with love and respect, as the generations progress here on this earth. So I can't thank you enough for that investment in the future, in spite of the devastating incident that happened as a result. You know, you've turned it around in a big way, just as I mentioned when I introduced you. So here's my question: can you talk to us about your ongoing initiatives with Herbie and the Smushies? What are some of those initiatives that you really want to take this to the next level to champion your message and making the world a better place?
yes, absolutely. So anyone who looks on at my looks for my book, Bullied at the Dog Park, you
Mm-hmm.
could either see it on Amazon or bullied at the dogpark.com. But anyone who just takes a quick peek will see that the characters come alive and they look like a cartoon already. And that's been my dream for the last 2 years. I've been working on pitching a series where every episode the kids will learn a valuable life lesson. And at the end, Herbie will come out and say, recap what happened. So Bullied at the Dog Park would be the pilot episode, obviously.
Right.
And then other episodes would be written. but it's really tough. You know, you have to get picked up by a network or a production
Right.
house. Animation's
Right.
very, very expensive. So I took a lot of my savings and I worked on making my own animated short film. And if anyone wants to see just a cute little 2D trailer clip, it's on my website, Bullied at the Dog Park, where they can see them come alive in a cartoon. And I have a 7-minute short film that's been accepted into 3 children's film festivals already. And it just won a bunch of awards at one in September. And I was so proud and so happy because I put so much work into it. I was the executive producer. I was a voiceover playing mommy. I had to work with the animator on a daily basis, the other actors, voiceovers, you know, I put it all
Yeah.
together, blood, sweat, and tears and all my money. And now my dream is that it does end up being a series and it's on every TV screen, because it could be, I just picture it being an every Saturday morning cartoon that the kids watch with their family, like I did, you know, growing up watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. I know these days it's different. It's 24/7 and they're on every tablet, but just that I just want it to be out there where it could be a weekly series and every week they learn something. And again, this is for preschool and kindergarten age mostly, but
Right.
parents can learn from it too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Parents can learn from it too. And that's and that kind of segues, and I know I said this before, but it kind of segues to my next question for sure. Uh, it's a tremendous message, and this is through man's best friend, right? Since the beginning of time. To me, that's part of the beauty. Also, you know, I know in my heart of hearts that our listeners who are parents out there can certainly use your book, not only for guiding their children, but also to connect with them, right? I mean, in the world of tablets and mobile devices and streaming TV and all this stuff, it's so easy to put a child in front of one of those devices and say, here, you sit with this and I'm going to go cook dinner or vacuum the living room or something like that, you know, but in an effort to connect with them at the deepest level, right? Just by look and feel and being next to each other, reading the book, talking about it, the connection right there. I see this book as a tremendous vehicle for making that happen. So how can our listeners, I know you mentioned Amazon and bullied@thedogpark.com, but is there any other way that our listeners can read an excerpt from your book or follow
Yes.
you
Yeah,
on your
absolutely.
journey?
Absolutely. I mean, everything's
Yeah.
on my website, and I would
Okay.
definitely say go there
Hmm.
first. You could purchase the book on Amazon too, but that just shows you the front cover and the back cover, which is great. The back cover has a synopsis of the whole book, but
Okay.
if you just go to bullied@thedogpark.com, you'll see testimonials from teachers and parents, and that I think is the most important thing for anyone who wants to buy the book to read, coming from somebody who it made a difference in their lives already. And I
Yes.
have some great testimonials on there from parents that they couldn't believe after reading the book that their children started, the child opened up about what bullying that happens with among her and her friends. And she said, I never thought by just getting I thought it would be another children's book, but it was read 4 or 5 times. And this is a woman who does a huge mom blog. And the fact that it went
Mm,
out on that blog, I was thrilled because that's what I wanted. I wanted to hear that. And when I saw that review,
right.
testimonial come back, I was so happy because that's exactly what I wanted to hear, that she literally used the words I use. It opened up the lines of communications between me and my kids. I honestly didn't know that it would have such an impact. So that book really does open
And
up the lines of communications. I mean,
oh, for sure. They connect. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it could be one little thing that one character says, that
Right.
will trip the child's mind about something that happened to them that's very relative. I love it. I love it because I love reading it to groups.
Right.
Teachers, all the teachers out there, you have to buy the book, because I'm not saying it like for sales. I'm saying it
No,
because
no.
every teacher I know bought the book to read to their classroom, because
Right.
they'll reread it to their classroom a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
my book is pretty much has it made it across the country. People purchased it in California, all
Good.
different
Good.
states. But my other goal, besides having the film, the cartoon picked up, is that the book is in every elementary school across America, because I really believe it should be in every elementary school, even if it's in the school
Mm.
library. And the
Right.
teachers for the grade levels that they think it should be read to could
Mm.
grab the book. And I just wanted to say that too, that I made the book a very sturdy, beautiful, hard-covered book that people just don't do anymore.
Right.
It's much more expensive to print a book that way. So
Right.
people, 99% will say, soft cover. And to me, that's not a children's book. I
No.
love the feel and the sturdiness, and it's going to sit in the bookshelf for years. And you'll look back 10 years later at this, the book will still be beautiful because it's so beautifully made.
I see what you're saying. So it speaks to the authenticity and how genuine the book is. Just like back in the day, right? When again, before the internet, before multimedia and social networks, when people read books, and books, they were massive, and they had substance to them. The cover, you can tell, was a cover. It wasn't only slightly thicker than the pages. It had mass and substance to it, where
Right,
it will last, right? And
right.
so yeah, and that, to me, that just speaks to the nostalgia of how we remember books to be, and you're bringing it to a current book today. That is amazing. Yeah.
And
That's
I have to tell you that just going back quickly, I did go
sure.
to this big meeting with a bunch of kids networks last year, and I
Hmm.
just carried my book around. I was pitching the series. You can't really pitch the book, because unless you're a top selling author, like on the best selling list, they're not
Right.
going to adapt anything from a book. But they all grabbed the book from my hand because they just happen to all be looking for that young age group kid
Right.
shows. And I'm still, fingers are crossed, I'm still waiting on a few that seemed very, very interested.
Hmm.
I actually
Hmm.
got an amazing email today. I don't want to jinx it, but I got an email today that I'm going to have a call with PBS in a few weeks. So
That is
that's really,
exciting, Heather.
yes. But you can never, because, it's hard to be excited because it's just the first call. But
Sure.
when they saw the book last year at this screening, this summit, they grabbed the book. They loved it
Hmm.
because it is PBS. It's exactly
Right.
PBS, educational
Yes.
cartoon. So I had a really good feeling about them last year, and they apologized for not really getting back to me and why it took so long. And they said, absolutely, we're going to set up a call right now with you, because the same summit's going on in Florida again
Right.
in a week. And they said the week after we come back, and they literally set the Skype call up. So it's just a great step. But people say be realistic because it could take years and blah 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 blah. But I just feel very positive. Everyone give me positive vibes, and send them my
Yeah.
way, because
Yeah.
this is my dream.
Well, from the road to rediscovery, I will tell you right now, Heather, we are sending positive vibes your way. They're coming to you in waves, okay? I feel really good about this. And sure, it could be a long process, but you know what? The longest journey starts with a single step, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it truly does. And so, for the listeners out there, look, I know you are parents, and I know some of you are teachers. You have to pick this book up and share it with your children, share it with your students. There is a tremendous message behind it. We hear so much about children growing up either disrespecting their elders or uh, maybe disrespecting each other, mistreating each other. And we want to really, really leave this world in such a way that our children have the proper mindset to treat each other with love and respect. And that really will help the world become a better place at the most elemental level. It's really easy. It's just sharing a story like this with them. So I urge teachers, parents, look out for this book. Go on Amazon. We will have information with direct links in the show notes of this episode of how to acquire Heather's book. Heather, man, I have really, really enjoyed this conversation with you. I've learned some stuff about Boston Terriers and smush faces. And I appreciate your spirit. I appreciate how you take such a devastating incident and you turn it around to help others grow, right? And especially our children. So thank you so much for that. And I'm in your corner. I'm one of your fans now.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed this conversation as well.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. So now we have come to the segment I like to call 3 for the Road. Now, Heather, this is where I'm going to ask you 3 kind of rapid fire questions to foster spontaneous thinking, right? In giving a response. I like to challenge my guests in giving a response in 5 words or less. Now, if you get on a roll with your answer and it's more than 5 words, that's okay. There won't be any avalanches or, rock slide or landslides or anything like that. That's okay. But these are designed to be rapid fire, 5 words or less, yet thought-provoking hypothetical questions. You think you're up for it?
Bring it on, Aubrey.
I love that competitive spirit. I can hear it through your voice. I really can. All right. Well, here we go, Heather. 3 for the road. Starting with question number 1. You are anointed the queen of the world, and you can rule the world, but with only one law. What would it be?
Everyone's equal.
Everyone's equal. I like that. That's 2 words. You did pretty good. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you're 1 for 1 so far. All right. Number 2. Complete the following sentence. The number one thing we can learn from dogs is
unconditional love.
2 more words. Unconditional love. I'm digging it 100%. And it's so true. They demonstrate that from the minute they're born until their last breath, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, number 3. If you could walk out your door and cross a bridge to a place, any place in the world, what place would that be?
The heaven that I perceive it to be.
I like that. And I'm just going to take a guess. Okay. It's just a stab, but being a lover of dogs and the heaven that you picture it to be. And I've heard a long time ago that all dogs go to heaven. I'm imagining your heaven would consist of dogs.
Oh, it will definitely have tons of dogs.
That is awesome.
But I'd like to see some family members too.
Of course. Yeah. I think we all would. I for sure definitely would. And I'd sprinkle some dogs around too.
Yeah, I will always be surrounded by dogs.
Awesome. Fantastic. So for the listeners, to get direct links to Heather's website and for picking up her book on Amazon.com, check out our show notes, which can be downloaded from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, theroadtorediscovery.com, and more. Heather, thank you so much for coming on this show. It was great having you here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And thanks to all of you for tuning in and listening. I invite you to subscribe via Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so yet, and feel free to leave a rating and short review. Guess what? We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and we'll chat again soon.